rising to their feet in salute to the heptathletes, and I wonder if they will be inspired into a standing ovation at the end of this men's 10,000 metres. This really has been an incredible night of sprinting, jumping, throwing, middle distance running, and now we turn our attention to the longest event of them all on the track, the 10,000 metres.
25 men will line up for this final.
Jake Whiteman has once again joined me in the commentary box. Jake, the quality of the Ethiopian challenge to Joshua Cheptegei's attempt to go 3 successive 10,000 metre titles is huge. Woody Kincaid there, one of a number of very, very talented Americans. But the Ethiopians with Berehu Aragawi, Selemon Barega and Yismail Dilu, the 17-year-old, I think we're going to see some serious teamwork tonight. And how much do you think it's going to hurt Cheptegei that he doesn't have Jacob Kiplimo in the race with him?
Yeah, he's still got 2 other Ugandans to help him out, but Kiplimo is probably the best partner in crime you could ask for if you're a Cheptegei in this sort of field. But yeah, we've got Barega, the Olympic champion, and Aragawi, who is arguably running better than Barega at the moment. So I'm sure, similar to when we used to see Mo race and the Kenyans would try and do what they could to disrupt him, I'm sure the same is going to happen to Cheptegei, because yeah, there's probably a lot riding on them being able to upset the world record holder here.
What a night. We've had 2 7-metre long jumps. We've got a Hungarian leading the hammer. We've just seen an incredible finish in the women's heptathlon, one of the great 800-metre races of all time. There's an energy and a spark in here tonight, isn't there? It's undeniable.
Yeah, there's a real buzz, and I think the medal for Hungary in that heptathlon there has just lifted the pace a little bit more, and hopefully that carries all the way through these 25 laps for these 10,000 metre men now.
Well, actually, we thought she'd got the bronze as well, and so did everyone in the stadium, but they reversed it because they got the numbers wrong, so she ended up finishing 4th, but they still could get a gold in the hammer. Anyway, let's turn our attention to this 10,000 metres. Cheptegei, the pride of a nation, the pride of a continent, and one of the nicest guys you could ever meet.
Yeah.
He's such a legend, isn't he?
So the Aussies who have pace-made for his world record attempts called him Cheppers, which I think that's a very affectionate nickname for someone that's very well regarded. And like a lot of these Africans, just lovely, lovely people. And yeah, I think Cheptegei and Kiplimo, from what I've heard, are both very, very nice men.
A cool, calm, relaxed character when he's away from the track, but he's an ice man when he's on it. Big puff of the cheeks. We've got 3 Americans, Joe Klecker, Sean McGaughty, Woody Kincaid. Some very, very good runners. But I think it's from the Ethiopians that we will see the strongest challenge to Cheptegei's attempt to win a 3rd consecutive title. Isaac Kimeli, European indoor silver medalist a couple of years ago. There's the chest pump. He comes from the land of mountain gorillas, and he's ready to roar tonight. Joe Klecker, 9th last year in Eugene. Daniel Ebenyo, Commonwealth silver medalist last year. Diaz del Rio. There's Kip Korea. He's a Commonwealth silver medalist. Now, Aragawi, 4th 2 years ago. He's the world record holder over 5K. He's the fastest man in the world this year. Wildschut of South Africa next to him. Rogers Kibet, 5th in the World Juniors, over 3,000 and 5,000 last year. Bernard Kibet, world best over 10 miles. The Bahrainian, Bailiou. Shrub of France, European bronze medalist last year. Barega, they've swept past him, but don't rule out Selemon Barega. He won the Olympic title 2 years ago with a 53-point last lap. There's McGaughty, one of the 3 Americans. He was 12th last year. Nebula Hatu of Eritrea, World Junior silver medalist last year. Mo Ahmed of Canada, great runner. Olympic silver 2 years ago, arguably not quite in that kind of form. What about the 17-year-old? To a second of the Ugandans. Joel Ayeko, mountain running specialist. Mensgi of Norway, European silver medalist last year. And then Woody Kincaid. His name's William, but his cousin used to call him Woody when he was growing up because he couldn't pronounce William and it stuck. It's a cool name, Woody Kincaid. And it's a cool man standing on the verge of what he hopes will be history. Joshua Cheptegei bidding to join the likes of Mo Farah of Great Britain, Haile Gabri Selassie and Kenenisa Bekele of Ethiopia as a three-time 10,000-metre world champion. That's Mo Ahmed of Canada. He hasn't had a great season, only 10th in Monaco and Florence in the Diamond League. Well, the women's 10,000 metre last night was an absolute epic, and this has got the makings of another. I know there are 3 Ugandans in this one, but it's a question of whether Rogers Kibet, who was 5th in the World Juniors last year, or Joel Ayeko, who's more known as a mountain runner, it's whether they can help Cheptegei as much as Jacob Kiplimo would have done had he not been injured. And this trio of Ethiopians is very, very special indeed.
I'm sure there's going to be team orders from Uganda to protect Cheptegei almost, but yeah, Uganda, Ethiopia are definitely going to be the ones who are going to be trying to match that with 3 of them. It's strength and numbers all round, hoping that they can work together to do their nations proud tonight.
So, Cheptegei just happy to settle in the pack.
It's Ayeko off the front there, so I'm not sure whether that was part of the plan to try and stretch the race out, potentially for Cheptegei, but yeah, a very big lead early on for him, but I'm sure that's going to get reeled in throughout these 25 laps.
62 seconds, it's quite punchy.
You've got to feel, Rob, as well, for the athletes in this heat. It's going to be a strategy as to when you're going to take on your towels and your water, just because it is so hot and humid tonight. That's a huge factor when it comes to 10,000 metre racing, especially for them here.
Yeah, Cheptegei just giving chase to his compatriot. Long, long, long way to go, though. Nobody getting too excited here. But I wonder whether the tactic from the Ugandans was to try and somehow, through a war of attrition, run the sting out of the likes of Aragawi and Selemon Barega, who, let's not forget, as I mentioned just before the race started, ran a 53-second last lap to win the Olympic title in similar conditions to this in Tokyo.
Yeah, he can do it on a day like this, and if you've won Olympic gold, there's no reason why you can't come out here and win a world gold. You know how to win races, and I would have said that if Ayeko was going to be the one going up the front, you wouldn't expect it to be Cheptegei that's dragging the pack round as well. If they were trying to put some sort of team plan together, you'd expect Cheptegei to sit a little bit further back. So maybe he's unaware that this was going to happen as well, and he feels his responsibility to try and move it.
To get back in the medals. That's a green light, which is the first port of call. It's going to be better than 688 though.
Mindenkirása érvényes volt, a kérdés, hogy föl tud jönni megint a dobogóra, pedig messziről ugrott el.
6 meters 59 for SA Pruma, so that's not going to be enough to get it back in the medals, which means that Alina Rotaru-Koopman of Romania will take the bronze medal, with 2 athletes still to come, Davis Woodall and Valletta.
Pruma nem tudott javítani Rotaru-Koopman, így 6.88-al egészen biztosan bronzérmes. A kérdés az, hogy a versenyben vezető Vallettát túlugorja utolsó sorozatban. Tara Davis Woodall az Egyesült Államokból, ő következik.
All fairly steady here. 4 laps ticked off.
I was watching Brega, Rob, just sat at the back of the whole field there. He doesn't seem too interested in this pace at the moment and pretty content with just sitting at the back watching the laps tick along, the Olympic champion.
Very, very long way to go. Brega's been around a while now. He's earned himself a huge amount of global experience. Kibet leading the trio of Kenyans who are locked together. Ibenyo is a Commonwealth silver medalist, 4th in the world indoors over 3,000 metres last year, and Kip Korea is in 5th, the 3rd of the Kenyans, and they're all tracking Joshua Cheptegei, who is behind Joel Ayeko.
We've also got Crippa from Italy in the field, European champion, who I'm sure can make a big impact in this race, especially in the closing stages. He can finish fast, as well as the Americans. I think Kincaid, who you mentioned, Rob, is known for finishing quick, so if he's still there in contention with a couple of laps to go, I'm sure he'll put himself in a place to be able to try and use that speed if it hasn't been run out of his legs by that point.
Still no move from this season's outstanding performer, Aragawi. A mention as well for Dilla, who's only 17 years old. He's the 2nd fastest youth in history at this distance when he ran 27:08 in the Ethiopian trials. How can a 17-year-old run 27:08? That's the kind of time that you expect a gnarled 28-year-old to run after he's gone through the gears of doing the 15s like you, then the 5s, then the 10s, and he's thinking about the marathon, and he goes, oh, I'll try and get down to 27 before I leave. It's absolutely ludicrous.
That's just raw talent, and I'm sure there's a lot of miles input in those young legs of his to be able to get down to those sort of times at 17 years of age. But could be seeing him for a decade in the future if he can keep this sort of trajectory going.
Bernard Kibet, the world best over 10 miles, so plenty of stamina in his legs, and it all looks reasonably comfortable here.
It was very smooth from Cheptegei, I think, to pull the pack. There wasn't many obvious surges. It was just a very gradual closing of the gap to his compatriot there.
Yeah, and it's become, the pace is a little steadier now. They're coming round, they're about 100 meters away from 3K. So they're going to get, they're on about mid-28s, I think, now, which is probably about right when you consider how truly stifling the air is this evening. I mean, there's not a breath of wind. It feels very, very hot and humid here. Yeah, 8:36. So, yeah, they're on for about 28:40, something like that. So it's become a little bit more sensible now, but I wonder what that does to the tactics. I wonder if Cheptegei decides to push the pace, whether he'll be nervous and have memories of that, of being burnt up by Berehu Aragawi in that incredible 5,000 in Lausanne, which he lost by less than a second, but in so doing they ran something like the 6th and 7th fastest times in history.
Yeah, being the world record holder, there's always going to be eyes on you, so I'm sure everyone in the field is just keeping a close eye on what Cheptegei decides to do in this race. Bit of a contrast to what we saw in the women's 10,000 yesterday, when it was a crawl by this point. still there's a bit more of an honest pace about it. Not ridiculous, but I'm sure they're probably grateful to be staying out of trouble, all running pretty short lines in lane 1. There's not too much spillage into lane 2, and they're running longer distances. They're all running pretty efficiently on their way around here.
Well, I thought that was one of the most dramatic 10,000 meter races I've ever seen yesterday. It was absolutely crazy, wasn't it? Just crazy.
It's definitely set the bar for this tonight. I think if it could be anything close to even that finish that we had in that women's 10,000, we're in for a real treat again, aren't we?
It's turning into a wonderful night. Cheptegei looking up at his compatriot. Kenya 1, Uganda 2, 3. Kenya 4 and 5. No move and no interest from Aragawi, wearing 8 on his hips.
I don't think he's really moved out of that position the whole race. He's been sitting just about inside the top 10, not seeming to take much notice about what's going on in the front. And still, I think Borrega sat right at the back of the field, again, taking even less interest in even Aragawi.
Borrega knows if the pace isn't lightning quick, he can run a 53 point. And I wonder, Cheptegei's got one eye on the marathon. He's doing Valencia this forthcoming December, and we know Valencia is a really quick course. I wonder if there's a feeling amongst the Ethiopian that perhaps the fact that Cheptegei was out-sprinted by Aragawi, he ran an incredible time in Lausanne. I wonder if they've got a feeling that he's just not quite, maybe there's half a second missing on the last 400 from him. I wonder if they've analysed his season and his statistics to that extent.
I'm sure. I'd be surprised if Cheptegei can close as quick as them, so if he doesn't want that to be the case, he's going to have to go from a little bit further out in this race here. But if you're someone that can close as quick as Borrega or Aragawi, you'll just be biding your time until you see the moves make. Just try and follow them as close as possible until you feel like you're ready to strike in that last lap, which is, unless somebody tries to do something a bit further out, is probably what we're likely to see here.
The reigning champion moves up onto the shoulder and past his teammate, now into second. Quebec's put a bit of an acceleration in here. His leg speed has noticeably increased. There's a long, long way to go here, but this is a definite, deliberate injection of pace.
There was a big reaction from the other Kenyan athletes there just to respond to that move, so they're aware of the potential danger of this, and I think it's woken the whole field up a little bit here to react to a move like this, which might be what they need at this stage in the race, just to make sure that they're switched on and engaged and ready for the last few K when it comes.
Cheptegei looks relaxed. Aragawi now, for the first time, coming up onto his shoulder and perhaps recognising the quality of this break and thinking, right, we need to close this down.
And Borrega's left the back of the field, I think, the first time in this race now. He's gone to third from the back right now, so still not paying too close attention, but he's definitely aware that there is a potential move about to happen if he doesn't concentrate here.
Ayeko's job is done. Great work by the directors. I noticed he stopped just a couple of seconds ago. The former world junior mountain running champion has got involved for the first 13 minutes as one or two move over to get a drink. It is stiflingly hot in the stadium. Aragawi from Quebec, Ibenyo and Kip Korea are all there. This is really fascinating. Little nudge in the back there from Cheptegei up to Kip Korea. Said, look, you're tripping me up. And there you just see again, he forces Kip Korea to move a little bit wider. The silverback, as he's sometimes known in his own country. Just making sure he's got clear space around him. Mo Ahmed of Canada also just putting his hands out just to make sure that he doesn't get tripped. He's in the middle of that pack, just behind the second of the Ugandans, which is Rogers Quebec, who was 5th in the World Juniors just last year. Right in the middle of your picture, Mo. But I'm not sure Ahmed's in quite the shape he was when he was on the Olympic podium 2 years ago. He's found it difficult on the Diamond League circuit, not finishing inside the top 10 in the 2 races he's taken part in.
Yeah, we saw him pick up that fantastic silver in Tokyo, and I don't think he's quite in that sort of shape this year, but he's still there, racing the 10K, and he's competitive at the moment in this race. And it's interesting to say about the clipping. I think you're trying to settle into a rhythm, be nice and relaxed at this point in the race. So if somebody's constantly either tapping your arm, tapping your foot, there's no danger of giving up position here just to get that person around you or just to step away from a little bit, because the last thing you want is to be distracted by that. You just want to kind of relax, focus and lock in on the rhythm that you're trying to tap out here at this stage when you're just ticking the laps off at this point.
Dilu in the centre of that pack, and still no move from the Olympic champion. Selimon Barega quite happy, just tacking along, minding his own business. Aragawi's not that interested in pushing this either. Bernard Kibet is now the one at the front, ahead of Berahu Aragawi.
Surprised to see the American Joe Klecker off the back at this stage of the race, so I'm not too sure whether something's happened in his preparation here, but I'd expect him to be in contention for a little bit longer than this, so not quite sure what's happened there.
Good running by Tozawa of Japan. I just wonder, the fact that the conditions are so stifling might actually suit him quite well. There he is in the middle of that pack, looking pretty comfortable there in the sort of, it's hard to describe the colour of that Japanese strip. It's sort of orangey brown.
Yeah, about luminous orange and red.
Luminous orange and red, okay.
I'm not too sure, but having spent the Olympics in Tokyo, I can confirm that it felt like this but worse for the whole time, so I'm sure this is a pleasant day for him.
Aragawi now tucked in on the curve with 1 or 2 just locking him in.
It's always interesting to see how little panic there is amongst some of the athletes to breakaways like this. It's a little bit like in the Tour de France, we see the breakaways at the front of it, and people are just content to let it go because they know that at some point it's going to come back. And I guess they're watching who's doing it and what they value, that actual breakaway attempt, whether it's a genuine effort to try and win the race or whether it's just trying to stretch things out, making it a bit uncomfortable for everybody behind.
Well, as we watch this fascinating 10,000 metres unfold, the men's hammer is still in progress. A little bit of an update for you. We saw incredible celebrations from Bence Halash because he thought he'd gone over 81 metres for the first time in his life. It was retrospectively analysed, 10 laps to go here, 2:52, that's a 68-second lap. It was retrospectively analysed and ruled as a no-throw. So Halash hasn't thrown over 81 metres, but the good news for the Hungarians in the stadium, his opening round effort of 80 metres 82 is still at the moment good enough for the gold medal, with Novici in second and Katzberg of Canada in third. We'll keep you posted on that one, but let's now return our attention, all eyes on this 10,000 metres, where we have now less than 10 laps to go. And look who's decided to pay close attention at the front.
Honestly, that came out of nowhere. I think within 200 metres, I hadn't noticed his progression up the field to hit the front like that. But yeah, he's bided his time long enough, and it's time for Braga to make his impact on this race for the first time. And he looks good. He looks smooth and relaxed.
What a great race this is turning out to be. Selimon Barega, the Olympic champion, leading from Bernard Kibet. The defending champion, Joshua Cheptegei, is in third. He just looks over his shoulder and has a word with the Kenyans and says, "Stop clipping my heels." It's Kip Korir and Ibenyo, just towards the top of your picture there.
Again, if you know that's going to upset him, it's something that you could potentially be doing. Just if he shows a reaction, then they could just keep rustling his feathers a little bit if that's what they want to get from Cheptegei.
Aragawi now coming past the Ugandan. Good running as well by Adrian Vilschut, fifth in the Commonwealth Games last year, the South African. He's the national record holder. He's gone low 27s, or 27.23 this year. And again, comfortable in this kind of weather. And he's almost up onto the shoulder. And we should start getting used to this triumvirate of sporting excellence, shouldn't we? For so many years, we've waxed lyrical about the distance-running rivalry, the duel between Kenya and Ethiopia, separated by that stunning vast Rift Valley. And in terms of sheer numbers of male and female athletes, they are still ahead of the Ugandans. However, with special athletes like Joshua Cheptegei, Jacob Kiplimo coming in with that world half record, the world cross-country title, the Ugandans are getting in the mix in that conversation, and it's now a triumvirate of East African excellence, which adds added intrigue and drama to these races as the reigning champion goes across, not for a drink but for a sponge. He's feeling it, and many of the other racers going along here certainly are. This is really sticky, it's hot and it's humid, and this is tough.
I think one of the turning points that I can remember was Kampala hosting the World Cross Country Championships. That was the first time we saw Ugandans really make a statement, and I think it was Cheptegei that suffered from heat fatigue there, and I'm sure he's learned his lesson from that hydration and making sure that you're staying on top of that in this sort of race when the heat is up and you don't really know when the consequences of potentially these conditions are going to come in, which is why we saw him probably go to the water station there and just make sure you're staying on top of that and you're not going to have any sort of negative effects from this heat and this humidity later on in the race.
I remember it well. It was in the Kololo Independence grounds, and Cheptegei ran like a madman and had a huge lead, but was reeled in by the brilliant cross-country runner Geoffrey Kipsang Kamworor, who's nicknamed the Beast because I think he won 3 World Cross and 3 World Half Marathon titles, an absolute animal. But you're right, that kind of triggered an extra wave of enthusiasm in the East African nation, and Cheptegei later that summer came second to Mo Farah in London before turning his run of world 10,000 metre medals to gold.
I think if you were to create an athlete for this sort of distance and say what would the perfect running style you could put on an athlete be, Cheptegei has got to be up there. He's just so efficient. There's no wasted energy at any point in his limbs. He's just steadily ticking along without sort of any over-excessive arm movements, any overstriding. He just looks so easy and relaxed when you're watching him run around at this pace.
Well, we've been chatting away, we've been talking about the contenders, the protagonists, and those looking to dethrone Cheptegei, and all of a sudden, in old-fashioned money, we're down to 1.5 miles. 6 laps of the track remain.
Mo Ahmed as well looks good for me, sitting there in 6th place. I feel as though he's not really been spoken about enough here. He's just slowly bided his time, sitting in that top 10, but now it's starting to get moving. I think he looks really good still.
Yeah, it is a good-looking performance. 5th last year in the 5,000 in Eugene after his Olympic silver. 6th in the 10,000 and in Doha. And there's a great community of distance running fans in Canada. They'll all be watching this evening. They've got some great races over there. The Tamarack race weekend in Ottawa is always worth a journey. And Mo Ahmed is a massively popular figure in Canada. Aragawi beginning to wind this up, you know, with 5 to go. It's Ibenyo leading the chasers with Kip Korir just behind him. Cheptegei is still there, no move yet from Barega, but little by little, Jake Whiteman, he's beginning to drop them off the back of this group, and maybe that's his intention. It's a gradual wind-up and a war of physical attrition.
I was watching Barega there to see whether he was one of the vulnerables hanging off, but he seems to be pretty content just to sit at the back of that pace. But yeah, the job Aragawi's doing here is, I'm sure, the desired effect, where just slowly he's breaking people one by one, and it's just going to be the toughest that are left standing to battle it out over the last few laps there.
Mo Ahmed in 5th. Aragawi looks up at what we call the rear view mirror. There are brilliant screens at either end of the stadium. It gives the athletes a clear view as to what's going on, and look at this move. Ahmed's found a way through on the inside, Cheptegei on the outside, Ibenyo now sandwiched between them. So we have Ethiopia, from Uganda, from Canada, from Kenya. 4 laps to go. 64, 64. And you know, it might take a 55 or a 54 to win this title.
We see Aragawi do this so much. He seems so happy just to be on the front, getting the pace moving on a bit. It seems to be, it's a skill that I don't have. I don't enjoy front running. It just requires a lot more effort and exertion, but I think at the right time in the race for him, he seems to do damage like this, where we're just still hanging on. There's a pack, probably about 10 there now, that's still in contention, but we've lost so many over the last 2 or 3 laps there from what he's been doing.
Kwizera of Burundi is still in there. He was 16th last year, 8th in the World Cross Country Championships in Bathurst in really difficult conditions. So the Burundian is hanging on to this group, and it's still a big group. We've got Aragawi, Barega's still in there. Kwizera is just behind Barega. Bailu hanging on, the former Ethiopian who now represents Bahrain and has done so since 2014. There's the damage that's been done, but the real action is happening up here. It's anyone's race, this. Perhaps, Jake, the manner in which he's performed this season, you might say that Aragawi is the marginal favourite, but you can't rule out fast finishers like Mo Ahmed, like Selimon Barega.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about 10,000 metres is that we don't get many opportunities to see these athletes running over this distance just because there's not the availability of races, potentially outside trials, so you don't necessarily know how people are going over this distance and how well they've prepped into these championships off of their camps. So yeah, it's definitely one that's going to make for an exciting last K here.
We got a glimpse there of Dilu. He's been dropped, so the Ethiopian challenge here is definitely down to 2, Aragawi and Barega at the front and the back of this little group. Bailu, the Bahrainian, has been dropped. 2 laps to go. And we've still got 8 in contention, and 8 into 3 does not go. Mo Ahmed is producing the best run we've seen from him all year. There's been no clue that he'd be there or thereabouts in this race, judging by his 5,000-metre performances. Training in the United States, I shared a taxi journey with him to the airport. He's a really likeable character. And Mo Ahmed is definitely still in the shake-up here. But here comes Barega. 600 metres to go. Is this the concerted move? Cheptegei thinks so because he's come wide on the outside. He's almost running in lane 3. But Ebenyo is holding him on the outside.
They all want to get on the shoulder, but no one wants to hit the front. But as we say that, Cheptegei's trying for it now.
2 of the Kenyans have been dropped. And all of a sudden, there's only 5 of them. They take the bell in the final of the men's 10,000 metres. The pride of a nation, Joshua Cheptegei, gunning for glory, gunning for gold, as he did in Doha, as he did in Eugene. Ebenyo's hanging on to that group, but look at Barega, the Olympic champion, is starting to close. Aragawi's tired. Ebenyo coming back into the mix. He now moves up into 3rd. It's the world champion against the Olympic champion. Barega desperate to add this crown to his collection. But Cheptegei wants a 3rd consecutive title. What a run! He's pulling away. Joshua Cheptegei with arguably the best performance of his career. The Ethiopians tried everything, but they couldn't stop him. The silverback delivers again for Uganda. A 3rd consecutive gold. There's the chest bumps. There's the realisation. The pride of Africa. He's roared like a lion, and so has Ebenyo. A wonderful silver for him. He overtook the Olympic champion on the line. Barega takes the bronze. What a race, and what a night here in Budapest. There were question marks over Cheptegei. Everybody thought the Ethiopians had the better of him this year, but when he went to the front with 4:50 to go, he was not to be denied. He really is a one-off champion, once in a generation, and we're privileged to be witnessing his greatness here on the track.
Oh, it's amazing. We said about the Ethiopians they were going to be able to put a 53, 54 second last lap in to try and break Cheptegei, but Cheptegei is the one that put that in to try and break them, and the way he looked down that back straight, so strong, and yeah, he's 3-time world champion now, and true class.
That was about as good as you'd want from a race. The Olympic champion against the defending world champion with 200 metres to go, and fair play to Ebenyo for out-dipping Barega on the line and nicking him for the silver. That was a fabulous race.
Oh, it was also, we saw Aragawi go a little bit backwards after leading for so long there, because I thought it was going to be a couple of Ethiopians there on the podium. But Cheptegei's the man. He's the king of this distance at the moment, and yeah, his reign carries on for a little bit longer.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed tonight and this race particularly. A lot of people give the 10,000 metres a little bit of stick and say, oh, you know, it's like 20 laps of jogging and then there's a 5-lap race. Why don't you just cut out the first 20 minutes? It's the most intense physical game of chess that our sport offers. I think in some ways, I've run a 10,000 on the track as well as a marathon. I think psychologically there's something so hard about the 10,000 because you have to go so hard to run a decent time. I think it's equally as hard as a marathon in a different way.
It's just a war of attrition, and there's so many chapters within the race that define what the total outcome at the end is going to be. It's a game of chess, like you said, Robbie. It's all about when you exert your energy at the right times, and once you make a move like Cheptegei did, it has to be decisive, and that's exactly what he managed to do on that last lap, is put himself in a position where he managed to gap the Ethiopians and make him work too hard, and Benyo from Kenya, to be able to catch him, because he'd already done the damage probably down that back straight.
Joshua Cheptegei is the toast of Uganda. 27.51, the time irrelevant. He went to the front with the heart of a champion with 4:50 to go. Benyo outdipped Barega. A worthy trio on the podium, and the man everybody fancied would take the title, Aragawi, ended up in 4th. A great race.